All right, so Jiu-Jitsu survival. Sometimes when you're little and you have scrawny little arms, if I just have my hand out like this, Brandon can just grab my arm and move it. And even if I'm trying not to let him move it, it's really hard, right? But as soon as I get my frame, so he grabs my hand and I actually put my hand right on my head. Now, he can't move me nearly as much, right? Because I have a frame. So, we're going to use that same concept throughout a lot of our techniques later in the day.
Alright, so I'm in top cross size here trying to attack Leland, and one of the things that I will do when I'm attacking is I'll switch sides, and what that'll do is usually it'll open up their arms. So if she's got a good defense here, I'm attacking, but the defense is good. One of the big main things I can do is just switch sides, so walk around the head, and I'm trying to use the weight of my hips and my body to break apart her defense. So, but she knows that, and she doesn't have to let it happen. So, Leland, explain.
All right, so I want to keep my triangle. So as he's going over to the other side, I want to think about where I can move my hips and my feet to maintain this structure. So you can kind of feel where your partner is and where you feel strong. If I let him get too far and my arm gets smushed down like this, I know that that's not good, right? So as soon as I feel him going around, I keep that elbow in his hips or the elbow in his armpit. But the whole time, my goal is to keep this triangle because it's very strong.
And if you do get behind a bit, just a bump and a wiggle and get your arms back. A little bump, a little wiggle. See you on the mat.
So the next one is called baby bridge. So real quick, without a partner, all I'm doing is driving my hip bone on one side up. So I keep my same frames that I had before, but I'm really going to drive this hip bone up. What that does is it keeps me from being flattened out without a lot of effort. So if Brandon is on a really heavy side control, and you can kind of feel, sometimes it's easier to go a little bit away because a lot of times that's the way they're driving. So I can take this foot and drive and I'm pushing my hip bone into his ribs. And you notice that right now my voice is very calm and collected, whereas when I was flat like this, there's more strain in the voice. So just tipping that hip bone in makes it much easier for me to breathe. And depending on where he is, I may tip the other hip bone in. But either way, I'm really trying to drive that hip bone up without expending a lot of energy. It also works from mount. So in this case, if he's doing a real heavy mount like we showed before, like go ahead and like squish me so that you can tell that my voice is really strained. I keep doing so, Brandon's not gonna move. And as soon as I tip my hips up, now all of a sudden I'm not nearly as strained. So I'm going to get stuck in the worst position, which is a cross face. Go ahead and, so this is like the terrible position, right? First things first, if I reach over, if he keeps like pushing in hard, and then my voice is strained, but then if I push with my shoulder into his armpit and my hand rolls his shoulder up, that by itself gives me quite a lot more breathing room than I had before. But if he like tucks his head and is still trying to do it, I can place my bicep on his forehead and jackhammer his face. And that gives me all this space here. Now I can get my knee in and start replacing my guard. So again, this is terrible. Shoulder into his armpit, roll it, jackhammer the face, and take the space as soon as I've created it. Alright, so here I have my elbows in, and having my hands closer to my head is going to put less pressure on my elbows. And I have one kind of in his neck and one in his hip. And my leg, some people put their foot on their knee like this, like they're hanging out and chillaxing. That's not what I want. This is not doing anything for me. What I want is my knee actively being against my partner. Now, as we move around, so he's probably fighting me, as soon as I feel this space, I can slide my knee down. right? Because it was already in contact with him. I can't see where my leg is, so it's really important that it's touching his body before I try to do my escape. So again, I'm here, my knees against, and as we move, I feel that opening. And as soon as I feel it, I'm bridging with this foot and driving my knee down. And now I can start creating my space. And sometimes he'll be following me, right? But I can still just keep inching. This foot is very active and following until I'm able to get my feet back in.
So if I'm having trouble getting my frame in or using it to get my Upa going here, what I'll do instead is I'll make a choice on which direction I want to turn in and then use my legs to start fishing for an escape that way. So first way I'll go is I'll turn away from them, which is almost counterintuitive because you're almost exposing your back when you turn this way. But now I've got the space available because I'm on my hip to bring my my close leg in and hook around their leg that way. Once I hook this here, I'm going to start dragging it as far as I need to so I can take my far away leg and start to hook it on in here. And then I'll bring him up as much as I need to sit up into a butterfly guard this way. If I get on my hip here and I stay only about this far, the back take is a lot easier to make happen. I just bring this leg in close here, hook, and drag it. You've got a lot of space once you start to drag it. And then bring this other one in and start to bring yourself onto your opposite hip as you sit up. If I want to avoid any sort of back take and going away from him, I'll turn into him this way. And what that'll do is bring me onto my other hip, and I'll bring my far leg in and hook it around his leg here. Once I've got this leg hooked here, I'm going to drag it while I scissor my bottom leg underneath and make my connection here. And I've got either a half guard, maybe it's even smaller, let's go back a step. Maybe it's even a little bit more shallow. And I'm bringing it in here, and all I've got is a little quarter guard. It's still much better than having this large animal on top of me in side control. Oi.
Alright, so again, I need to have my good frames, and I actually like to, instead of laying here passively, I'll kind of bring my head up so that I can move around. And a lot of times I need to be able to, so if he's really squishing me, right, I need to be able to move my hips. So again, I use my little baby bridge and I start to turn over. If I just place this frame here and he squishes it down, I can no longer use it. So if I can keep my head attached, now I can keep that frame strong. And then this elbow has inserted right inside his thigh, if you can see that. So it doesn't need much, and if I insert it like this, then it's weak, right? So I'm taking my whole body with it, insert the elbow. Now, I can take this foot here and just scoop this ankle up, and I can start inching my hips. Notice I still am defending myself because he can still choke me or attack my arms right now. So I can scoot this, and then now I have a nice quarter guard. Now it's a lot harder for him to do his attacks on me because I can straighten my legs or I can bring them in, and then eventually as I turn it will create additional space to come to an open guard. So these defenses will look very different each time you do them because it depends a lot on what your partner is doing. So again, I have good frames. I'm picking a side, so I'm really driving in so that I can have good comfort as I do this. And then scooping this foot. Now I'm turning and I can keep moving, right? And it's not going to be one motion. Now he's a little bit disrupted, but he's still trying to squish me. And then eventually I can get my other foot in. Maybe come to butterfly. I think butterfly is an easy one to come to oftentimes, but you may end up in another guard.